So in my last videos, I feel like I, laid the groundwork for how to get over anxiety. But in this video, I wanted to get really practical. These are the specific things that helped me, the real specific practical things. And there's really 3 that I want to focus on. Also, don't worry, I'm just doing circles in my neighborhood, trying to not let the car battery die since it's not really getting driven much these days. It's totally safe, no problem, nothing to worry about. Okay, so maybe we should finish this video from home. In my very first video, I had kind of joked about my, hypochondriac / cyberchondriac tendencies, which, if you haven't seen that video, by the way, you should check it out right up here. And even though it's something I can joke about now, there was definitely a point in time where it was severely affecting my quality of life. And the crazy thing was, it wasn't just medical stuff. I was afraid of a lot of things, especially anything that could kill you. I was afraid of germs. I was afraid of getting sick. I was afraid of going to the doctor. I was afraid of not going to the doctor. It was kind of a really crazy situation. And like I mentioned, I was really afraid of dying. If there was somebody out there somewhere who had died in some sort of crazy way, you could pretty much guarantee I was also going to be afraid of that thing. Now, the Bible actually talks a whole lot about anxiety. There's a ton of verses that people in the church love to quote, especially when it comes to anxiety. Things like, cast all your anxieties on Him, do not be anxious about anything, true love casts out all fear. The list is really extensive, actually. And like I said, the Bible talks about it a ton. On top of that, for most Christians, Christianity is kind of all about what happens after you die. It's like an insurance policy for the afterlife. So for a lot of people, there's really no reason that Christians should be afraid, especially afraid of death. The problem was those verses and those truths, they didn't really help me deal with my anxiety. If anything, they only made it worse, because now, not only was I scared and anxious and afraid of dying, but I also felt guilty about being scared and anxious and afraid of dying. Christians aren't supposed to be anxious. It says so right in the Bible, right? This constant back and forth started kind of a really vicious cycle. I would go through intense seasons of anxiety, followed by seasons of guilt. Then more anxiety, more guilt, more anxiety, more guilt, ramping up and up and up and up and up and up until you get the idea. After years of going through this, I couldn't take it anymore. I was on the verge of a breakdown. So I called one of the pastors at my church and asked him if he'd meet me to talk me down, help me regain my footing. As I was in his office telling him about the 1,001 ways to die and how afraid I was of every single one of them, he kind of asked me a pointed question. He asked me, "Do you think that Jesus was afraid of dying?" My knee-jerk reaction was, "No way. Remember? Cast all your anxieties on Him. Do not be anxious about anything. True love casts out all fear." Jesus was perfect. There's no way he was afraid of dying. And my pastor, he listened to me, but then he followed it up with one more simple question. If that's the case, he said, then what do you make of Jesus in Gethsemane? My pastor was referring to a scene just before Jesus' crucifixion, where he goes to a garden outside of Jerusalem to pray. The book of Mark describes this scene in really great detail. They went to a place called Gethsemane, and Jesus said to his disciples, "Sit here while I pray." He took Peter, James, and John along with him, and he began to be deeply distressed and troubled. "My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow, to the point of death," he said to them. The scene then continues with Jesus in intense prayer. At one point, it describes him being so distraught that he sweats blood. I don't know about you, but that definitely sounds like someone who is afraid of dying. Can you imagine waiting to be executed by crucifixion? I think I would be feeling kinda. My pastor then went on to explain that feeling these feelings are normal. Even Jesus was distressed at the thought of dying. I think people have this vision of Jesus as like this perfectly calm guru, perfectly at peace, like a version of Spock, who just floated around everywhere, never upset. But Jesus was not that way. He was sad, he was angry, he was distraught, he was emotional. He felt emotions. It might seem weird, but this was kind of a life-changing realization for me. Feeling scared or anxious is not wrong in itself. Even Jesus was distraught at the thought of a gruesome death. I didn't have to feel guilty for feeling scared. I think we need to stop demonizing people who are feeling things that are very natural, human feelings. Of course we feel scared of dying. The solution is not for us to become Spock. Feeling feelings isn't what's wrong with us. And when I looked at Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane, I saw for the first time a God who knew exactly what I was going through. In fact, he knew it more in a real way than even I did. I was only worried about the possibility of dying. He knew he was going to die. And I felt this incredible connection with Jesus at that time. Felt like Jesus could empathize with me. He knew what I was feeling because he had felt it too. The crazy thing is that simple realization became the first step in helping me overcome my anxiety. That was step one. The next step, though, was much harder. A step that took me a lot longer to take. I knew what I had to do, but I knew it was going to be hard to do it. But that'll have to wait till the next video.